All right, thank you. So let's talk about championing change. I don't know about you, but I like to think of myself as someone who enjoys change, who is good at change, and as an early adopter of change. So we have here our chart for change. And there are various different stages of changes. So there are 5 categories of adopters of change. There are innovators. These would be our Elon Musks or our Edisons, right? Those who are visionaries, our early adopters, our early majority, our later majority, and our laggards who tend to be a little later to adopt change. So if you want to just think about yourself for a minute, where do you think you typically are when it comes to adopting change? And it may not be the same every time. Um, but if you were to place yourself, no need to confess, where do you think you usually are when it comes to adopting change? Now, I'd like to think of myself as an early adopter, if not, maybe occasionally an innovator on a small scale. But as we move on to the next slide, there are some situations, I think, for all of us that this is not the case. So if we think back to 2020, all of us faced a situation in which we were forced to adopt some change, right? So as we faced COVID, here is a situation in which all of us had change that was not welcome, right? It was very uncertain. None of us welcomed it, wanted to be early adopters. We displayed some strange behaviors. Now, why was this change unwelcome for all? Number one, it was not a good situation. It was very uncertain. I think to myself back to the early days, March, April, May of 2020. Very uncertain situation. We didn't know how it was going to go. Many people were not working. Those of us in the bacon business were, right? But a lot of uncertainty, very sudden change. So there's a big emotional roller coaster that goes along with change. And we were all on it together at that time. None of us welcomed change in any form. All of us were resistant to it. We tried to work together and be gung ho about wearing masks and making masks and all of those things, but we were all on the same emotional roller coaster together regarding this change. Now, on a much smaller scale, Salt Lake City experienced some change this spring that I think we felt very much the same about. So we had some situations here. We had some missing team members that made this spring very challenging for us. In addition, we had an SQF score that had dropped 22 points. And that was also not a welcome change for us. And finally, this is how we felt, right? I think that we could all say we were feeling a little bit bruised. And while we wanted to display our packed values and be welcoming of change and be these change champions, it's kind of hard when you are feeling all of those emotions. And so while we wanted to pull together and do all of those things, it's important to remember that we all go through the same emotional values with change, and that we need to go through and feel all of those things. So sometimes when change comes for us, it's easy as leaders of change to say, hey, we're championing change. Here it is. Here are all the rational reasons for it. We're going to do this together. It's going to be great. But we need to remember that there is an emotional roller coaster that we go through with change, and to allow our people to feel it and to support them through it. So let's talk about these emotions that go along with change. John, if you could move to the next slide. Sometimes we don't want to move until we're forced to. Okay, so it's easy to be complacent. It's easy It's easy to continue on as we are. As Simon Sinek says very well, if the answer is, do you want to change? Do you need to change? If the answer is no, then that's probably not a healthy answer. So we need to stay right where we are. If we need to stay right where we are and we think we're good there, it's probably not the healthiest answer. And we may need to take a look at ourselves. So if you're feeling comfortable and perfect, maybe take a look inside. So moving on to that next emotional roller coaster for change. All right. So emotion and change, the less warning and the more uncertainty we have around a change, the greater shock and resistance we will have. So for those of us, again, who are anticipating change, who are planning for the change, we will be more prepared for that. And the more communication we can have around that for people, the easier we can make this curve. So think about this as we approached COVID. And for those of us in Salt Lake, think about this as we experience that shock with our SQF audit, as we experience these changes that we went through this spring. And so shock. We got our audit scores. We had these changes within our structure, our leadership. We went through denial. I can certainly see some of these stages where we went through, it's not fair. This can't be right. There are these different reasons. Frustration. We were upset. We were angry. How could this possibly have changed? 98 to 77 within 1 year. It was the same auditor. We were demoralized. It was certainly a moment of introspection as a team, of feeling kind of hopeless for a minute, and then moving forward together, finding different ways to resolve things, moving together. And I'm so grateful for our leadership that helped us pull together. Brett and Brian and Sean really helped us come together in new ways, and we'll talk a little bit about what we learned here as well. And then integration. This is something that really had to happen quickly. When you have that many corrective actions and you have, less than 30 days to get those done, it really had to be a team effort, and a lot of changes to happen quickly. We were without a sanitation manager. We were without a regular quality manager. We had Sean filling in and trying to do those things. We were down a production manager and suffered the loss of one of our production managers during that time. So we had a lot of emotion and a lot of challenges going on, and pulling the team together during that time really was hard for us. But let's talk about what we learned. So just like during COVID, we did have some changes, and some of those were positive. Does anyone wash their hands the same way? Or when they're sick, think about things the same way? I don't think so. I don't know even a single child who doesn't think about washing their hands the same way as they did before. Next, remote work. I think we're all a lot more comfortable with this. Look at us having a remote meeting right now, spread across the whole company. We meet more comfortably remote-wise. Many people work from home. We're much more comfortable with teleworking and meeting remotely than we were prior to the pandemic. And then finally, hobbies and life outside of work. If we were lucky, we didn't lose people close to us during COVID, but many of us had the chance to pause, to look at life outside of work, to slow down a little bit, and to value things around us. So COVID did have some positive changes for us, as we moved through that process. And then for Salt Lake City, how this spring has changed us. First, we are no longer complacent, okay? I think that it was easy to look on previous successes when you've had a year at 98. or several years in the 90s at audits, it's easy to think that you can coast and that you don't have to take a hard look at every single process every year and your programs. And so now we dig into everything tooth and nail, and we examine very closely, and we will continue to do that. You could say we are paranoid. Just like Rocky, when he was beat up, we have our workout program in place, right? You could say we figuratively have Eye of the Tiger playing in the background, right? We are pumped and moving forward together, and we are energized to go. So back on that curve upward, we are putting in the work. It's every day, it's doing the reps, it's all of those things, and we're not letting any of that slack. And then finally, this was the biggest thing for us, is it was a heavy team lift. No one, we did certainly have some outstanding team members that were doing great things, and really doing beyond their part, as we answered this. You know, our maintenance team was outstanding. I know that many members of our production team, and Brian and Sean, you know, I don't know that they took any days off for many days as we answered that audit. But it was a heavy team lift, and it took everyone stepping outside of their regular job roles in order to answer that. But we were able to get it done, and we learned a lot, and we came together as a team. So those were all the learnings that we had that came out of that audit, and we made it through that emotional curve, and I think we came out stronger for it. So I want to point out that even as we champion change, it's important to acknowledge that change is not always comfortable. It's important, as we lead our team members through it, that we acknowledge that change is not easy, and that we lead through those emotions, and we guide through those emotions, and we have those conversations as leaders. Thank you.